Hi guys, I'm gonna show you how to set up a triptych. Triptychs can be laid out a whole bunch of different ways, depending on your own creative idea of how you see your pictures coming together. I am only showing you one possible layout today. It's kind of a standard layout. You can take this information and adapt it to whatever project you have in mind, and then I can also walk around and help you individually with it. So for example, this person did a layout that's a square with three really different sized pictures. This person did a long and thin layout where the two pictures on the left and right are the same size and the picture in the middle is bigger. So there's a lot of options for how you lay it out. I'm just going to do a tall and thin layout for three horizontal pictures. So again, if you have a different idea, you can use this to get you started, and then I can walk around and help you. So first what you want to do is set up your canvas. I'm going to go to File, New. And like I told you, I'm doing a tall and thin layout. That's kind of a standard layout for having three horizontal pictures that you're going to put together. If you had three vertical pictures, you would flip these dimensions. So for tall thin, I would do an 11 inches by 20 inches at 300 pixels per inch. If you want it long and short, you could do it 20 inches by 11 inches. So you could flip those dimensions. But I'm going to do it as an 11 by 20. I'm going to hit Create. And I'm going to set up my margins. So make sure your rulers are available. You go to View, and you turn on your rulers if they're not there. You go to your Move tool, and you're going to hover right in the middle of the ruler and drag down while holding Shift. Shift will make it snap onto the 1 inch mark, and I'm going to put a margin at the top at 1 inch. And then I'm going to drag from my ruler on the left side and bring that in and hold down Shift and put a margin at 1 inch again. And then I'm going to put another one, since mine is 11 inches, to have a 1 inch margin. On the right, I would have put it at 10. If you have a 20 inch, yours would be at 19. So I'm putting mine at 10. I'm not going to worry about the bottom margin right now. And then the next step is to bring in my pictures. All of the pictures, the way you bring them in is you go to File and you go to Place Embedded. That will bring in each of your pictures one by one. I'm just pulling some snapshots that we did in class, but you obviously would choose your pictures. So find your picture, hit Place. That picture comes in with a big X through it. That means you're in transforming mode. I'm going to snap that right up onto that top corner there, into that margin. And then this could not be more important, which is as you scale your picture, you're going to drag from the corners. That's how you scale, is always from a corner point, not from a middle point. So drag from your corner, hold down the Shift key, and shrink it down. Remember, if you don't hold down Shift, you can end up distorting the picture and it's going to look terrible pretty quickly. So make sure you hold down the Shift key the entire time, bring it in, and let go. With my clicking hand first, and then my Shift. Once you've done that, Photoshop wants to know if you're happy with it. If you're not happy, escape and do it again. If you are happy, you either hit this check mark on the top or you hit Enter. So boom, my first picture's in. Going to go to File, Place Embedded, bring in my next picture. File, choose it, Place. And what you want to do with your pictures is always leave some white space in between them. It looks really bad if they're right up against each other like that because they just bleed into each other. So you always want a little bit of space between them. That is up to you about how much space you want. You just want it to be consistent. So I'm going to put it there. Hold down the Shift key, bring it onto that right margin, again, by scaling it from the corner, and hit Enter. I'll bring in my last one, File, Place Embedded, Place, and I'm going to eyeball it. I'm sort of looking for those spaces to be consistent. I'm pretty good at doing that. I can sort of see the size because I've done it so many times. But if you have a hard time doing it and you want to be able to measure that, I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I'm going to pop it in. Again, go down to the corner, hold down Shift, and bring it up. and hit enter. If they look inconsistent and you want to move them, you can. Certainly you can drag these around at any time. And you'll see that as I drag it, it actually is giving me some smart guide saying, hey, these are pretty even. So I can do it that way. And what I'm going to make sure is this bottom margin is also an inch. So actually what I'm going to do, just for the sake of showing you, because it looks like it's pretty close, I'm going to squeeze these a little closer together so that I don't have an even margin. So now you can see with this layout, there's too big of a space on the bottom, right? And depending on any of the layouts you do, you may find that when you brought in your stuff, you then need to crop off part of your image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the marquee tool to measure my inch. First, what I'm going to do is just bring it down a guide onto this bottom picture. And it'll snap on. If I select it, it should snap on at least. There we go. The marquee tool is the second tool down. We did this way back when and used it to measure, so I'll show you again how to do it. So I click on my marquee. Under Style, I'm going to choose Fixed Size. That's going to let me say exactly how big this is, and I'm going to use it kind of like I would use a ruler. So I'm going to go to Fixed Size, and I'm going to say make it 1 inch by 1 inch. So you'll see if I do that, it is exactly an inch. It should be exactly the size of my left and right margin. I'm going to drag it down to the bottom, and I can see that my bottom margin is in fact bigger than an inch. So I'm going to just drag it, snap it onto the bottom of that picture, and now I know I need to crop off this little bottom part. And I'm going to go to my, I'm going to go first, I'm going to make a guide. Again, I'm going to snap a guide right onto the bottom of that marquee. And I'm going to deselect it. So the way to deselect the marquee is you can either hit Command D or select and deselect. So I want to turn off that marquee before I go to the crop tool. So turned it off, go to crop, and then I can just drag my crop up. It should snap right onto that bottom guide and hit return. If you found that confusing, then don't worry about that. Make that the last thing that you do, and I can help you with it as I walk around class. What some people might find is actually they need to add some canvas space. So I don't need to, but let's just say I'm going to create a situation where I do. So let's just say when I laid out my pictures, I wanted a bunch of space, and now I like the way this looks, but it's bigger than the space that I have available. So that would be a situation where I want to actually add canvas. So what I would do in that situation, if that's you, is I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to go to Canvas Size. So you can add a bunch and then crop it off if you want to. But let's just say I decide I want to add a couple inches onto the bottom. So first I would just know where do you want, is it the width or the height that you want to add? So width would be adding space this way. Height is adding space this way, right? So let's just say I decide to make this 22 inches. What's really key is this picture down here. So what this is showing you is this is your current artwork. If whatever you type in, do you want me to distribute that extra canvas around it evenly, or do you want me to add it in a particular direction? In this case, we just wanted to add to the bottom. So what we do is we click on this square up here, and what that says is, hey, now what I want you to actually do is here's my artwork, and just add it in the directions the arrows are pointing. In this case, it would just add it down and not going up. And then you want to make sure you're extending it in the same color as you want it to be white. So you could just choose white from the drop down, or if your foreground or background color are white, you can choose that and hit OK. So now it just popped on some extra canvas onto the bottom. And then I'll just repeat what I did before. I'll finish my layout. I'll drag a guide to my bottom picture. It'll snap on. Go to my marquee, click onto the bottom, Snap that onto that bottom picture so I can kind of see where my bottom 1-inch margin is. Drag the guide onto that bottom of that marquee so it snaps. So now I know I'm going to crop off this little piece down here. Turn off the marquee by going to select, deselect, and then back to my crop. Oops, it didn't deselect. Let me try that again. Select, deselect. There we go. And then I'm going to go back to my crop and just crop off that bottom piece. It should snap on, hit enter, and I've now got equal margins. Your last thing, or at some point, one of the things you're going to do is then you also want to make sure you Photoshop each of your images. They should look good together. You want to make any adjustments to make them both individually look good and look good together. So let's just say I want to turn this picture down here black and white. I'm going to click on the picture, and I just want to remind you, here's the black and white filter. I just want to remind you on those adjustment layers that when you're adjusting, if you bring in an adjustment layer, it'll adjust everything under it. If you only want to adjust one particular photo, what you'll do is hit this button here, and then you can see it only made the ballet dancers black and white because it's only going to apply to the layer right under it. In this case, it's the movement 4 picture, which is the ballet dancers. So this button here is really key to making sure you're only adjusting the picture that you want. And then you would do dodge, burn, adjustments. You've got all the adjustment layers that we've discussed to make it look really excellent overall. At the end of class, save it as a Photoshop. That way you can always go back and make edits to it. When you're 100% sure you are done, you first will save it as a Photoshop. That'll maintain all your layers. And then later when you're 100% sure you're done, you'll save the Photoshop and then you'll go back and save it as a JPEG through the drop down. But make sure you always save it under the Photoshop format as well, so that when I come in or as I walk around, if I say, hey, you need to make a change, you would still be able to do that. Once you save something as a JPEG, you lose all the layers and you can't move them around again and you have to start from scratch. So just make sure you save both. That's it for today, and I will walk around and help you with your triptychs.